Hello and welcome everyone. This is FIDE Master Michal Coto. I recorded this video for Remote Chess Academy. Today we are going to see a very exciting game. This is Michal Krasenkow versus Hikaru Nakamura, Barcelona Casino 2007. In some moment of this game they had this position. Nakamura was playing as black. White is threatening the bishop, the rook, and the queen at the same time. So it seems like a tough position for black right now. The question I want to ask you is, what is the best move for black in this position? Before we continue, I would like to take a look at the opening and middle game of this game. Michal played knight f3, Naka knight f6, and now c4. He transposed to an English e6, g3, d5, bishop g2, bishop e7, castling, and now b3. And in this position, black played a5. You should know that the main line here goes with c5, bishop b2, knight c6, e3, and maybe d4. Those are normal moves in this kind of positions, and this could be a balanced game. Instead of that, black played a5, knight c3, c6, d4, knight b, d7, queen c2, b6, e4, breaking the center. Now bishop a6 developing, putting some pressure on c4. There is also a pin over here. And in this moment, the best move for white should be e5. Black knight should go to e8, and then knight e2 was very strong, protecting the pawn on c4, and also preparing some plans, for example h4, knight to f4. This should be fine for white. Observe that white has some more space in the center, and that's the reason why they should be better here. But in the game, Michal just played knight d2, which is a typical idea in this kind of positions, because the knight now protects e4 and c4, and also is clearing the line for the bishop. But probably one of the problems of this move is the pawn on d4 is now unprotected. So Naka just played a strong counter attack in the center and played c5. White played e takes d5. e5 now is not so strong because the knight can go to g4, and as this square is now available because the bishop is not hitting h6 because of the knight, then the knight will be able to come back to h6 and maybe go to f5, putting pressure there on d4. So this move e5 now is not going to be as strong as previously. So white just took on d5, black took on d4, the knight goes to b5, and black took on d5. You should know that after bishop takes, which seems an interesting move, white can just play d takes e6, and now white is threatening knight and bishop at the same time, and it seems like a good position for white here. So instead of that, black just took on d5, knight takes d4, rook c8, bringing the rook to the semi-open file. Also there is a queen there, which is not good for white. The rook goes to e1, b5, putting more pressure there on c4, bishop b2, And now black can take the pawn on c4, but let's see, because it's not so clear. After b takes, black cannot take with d, because then white can play knight c6 with a fork here threatening bishop and queen. So instead of taking with d, they should take with bishop, but then knight takes bishop, rook takes knight, and queen d1. And this position, we could say white has some compensation here, because they have two bishops, they have a very good knight on d4, and this pawn, this extra pawn for black here is isolated, it's very easy to attack. The knight is coming to f5, the rook is on e1. So in this position white has compensation, and I guess that's why Hikaru didn't like this line. Instead of that, he just brought the rook to the open file and played rook e8, is also clearing f8 for the bishop. Queen goes to d1, moving the queen out of this line, because no one wants to have the queen in the same line than your opponent's pieces. b takes, and queen b6. He's pointing here b2, maybe also pointing over d4, and also is controlling here on c6. So maybe in some next move black can capture here on c4, because now white won't have this knight c6. Let's see. Rook b1 and d takes c4. It seems like black got an extra pawn here, and white shouldn't be able to play knight c6, but you know what? Krasenkow just played that move, knight c6. The idea is that as there is a rook here on b1 and black queen is also here on b6, there will be discovered ideas here on f6. Actually, this move, knight c6, is a mistake. Rook takes c6 and bishop takes f6, threatening the queen. The best move was actually rook takes e7, and after rook takes, then bishop takes f6. The best move for black should be knight takes bishop, rook takes queen, rook takes rook, and here black has two rooks and a pawn against a queen. This should be a good advantage for black. It should be enough to win this game. But in the game, Krasenkow took the knight on f6, and this is the position we had at the beginning of the video. So again, we have the same question. What is the best move for black in this position? The best move, and the one Nakamura played in this position, was queen takes f2. Excellent move, sacrificing the queen. The idea is that he's going to extract white king to the center of the board, and then he will have two rooks, two bishops, and a knight. Prepare to put a lot of pressure on that king, and probably there will be some mate variation there. In this position, white has to take the queen, because after king h1, then black can just take the bishop, and this is material advantage for black. So king takes queen, bishop c5, and here white has like 4 options. They can move the king up and down, and also they can block with the rook or the bishop. We are just going to focus on the king moves, because after bishop or rook, blocking the black bishop would take, and it could be more or less similar positions. So in the game, Michal played king f3, but let's see, after king f1, black could play c3, discover attack over here. Rook e2 is probably the only move, and then c2, a deflection to make this queen get away from the rook. The queen has to take there on c2, and now bishop takes rook, very strong, because white king has to go to e1, and now there will be discovered checks like this one on d3, king d1, bishop takes queen, king takes bishop, and rook takes f6. And this is winning because black has an extra rook and probably an extra pawn too. So it could be decisive advantage in this position. So in the game, white played king f3, and then of course rook takes bishop, king g4 is the only move here, and now knight e5, check. White played here king g5, but let's see, after rook takes knight, trying to give back some material, but trying to escape with the king is not enough, because then bishop c8, check, king h4, rook takes rook, now it's threatening mate over here, and it's not easy to stop that threat. Maybe g4, but then bishop f2 and mate in one move, rook h6. So rook takes knight is not going to be enough. In the game we see king g5, rook g6, king h5. It seems like black doesn't have more checks here, but they have this strong move f6. It's threatening mate in one move because this pawn is now controlling g5, so black is threatening rook h6 now. Rook takes knight, rook takes rook, king h4 only move, and now another strong move controlling important squares. Bishop c8, and in this moment white resigned. Black is threatening some mates over here. Bishop f3 wouldn't be enough, because then rook h6, bishop h5 only move, and then mate in one move again. g5. There are two important moments in this game I'd would like to highlight. In some moment between the opening and the middle game, we had this position, white played knight d2, and here Naka found a very strong counterplay in the center. He played here c5, taking advantage of the weakness of this pawn here on d4, and after this he got at least an equal position with this move. And the second moment is right here, when he decided to play this fantastic queen sacrifice on f2 in order to extract white king to the center of the board. So this is the game I wanted to show you today. I hope you have enjoyed it. Feel free to leave any comment about the game or about chess in general. Your opinion is important for us. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to share, and I hope to see you soon in another video.